my name is Hsieh, and I am our Deputy Secretary of AI and Policy, and just excited to be in front of you all today, excited that you're here. You know, I'll start by sharing a personal story of just my own walk with innovation. You know, when I think about like a younger me, you know, I think one of the benefits of having some gray hair here is, you know, like Scott was saying, I was just on my way here thinking about, wow, what happened? You know, I was a wee lad when I was just entered the workforce during like the dot-com boom, you know, and just watching how that changed and reshaped our world. It went from like being, oh, cool, everybody's got a website to, oh, wow, look at Netflix just putting Blockbuster out of business, right? Changing the way, disrupting the way we as human beings just interact and get information and all that. And so that younger me, I remember driving around thinking, okay, gotta be innovative. You know, how do I become more innovative? And just really trying to squeeze innovation out of my brain. But prior to coming to the state, I worked for SAS, you know, an employer, a large employer here in North Carolina and Cary, you know, focused on advanced analytics, AI, and I led a lot of our work with the United Nations. And so those big. How about now? Testing. Or, you know, when something the only natural as a category back in the Philippines, they were taking their spreadsheets, right? Like they were managing 250,000 displaced people. And you know, they're the best in the world at managing all these people on the move, but they were doing it on an Excel spreadsheet. And so I said, hey, send me that spreadsheet. And within 30 minutes, we were able to give them some insights, just, you know, just using some good old-fashioned data analytics. And so fast forward 2 years, we're in Nepal earthquake happens. So then I go and I call them up again. And again, my friend Brian, he is a modern day superhero where when everything goes bad and everybody's bugging out, he's dropping in. Let me just shout. And testing. I'll just keep talking. I know a little sign language. Maybe that would help. But so anyway. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing. So so I called my friend Brian and I said, hey, let me help. Nepal earthquake just happened. And he said, you know, I don't think you can help me this time. He said, what's going on? And he said, the answers I need, I don't have the data for. And so you've got nothing to analyze. And he said, my biggest problem right now is I have 60,000 families sleeping out in the open fields because, you know, the Nepal earthquake, huge earthquake, like 7.0 or something like that. And there were lots of aftershocks that were bringing down, you know, the whatever walls were standing on people's heads and stuff. So you had 60,000 families sleeping out in open fields. And so he's like, I've got to figure out how to get some shelter for 60,000 families because monsoon season comes in 4 weeks. High winds, driving rains, people are going to start getting really sick really fast, sleeping out in the open fields in nothing but a tent. And so at first I was a little deflated that I couldn't help because I've come to really love doing that with them. And that's a part, I share this story because it's personal because it's a big part of the reason why I'm here. I feel like all my work with the United Nations really prepared my heart and my mind for public service, right? Because I loved it so much. But then as I hung up the phone with them, I thought, wait a second. I had just finished a project with the United Nations Statistics Division where we uploaded 300 million rows of everything ever bought and sold in the world through the UN Comtrade database. And, you know, 10 years ago, 300 million rows was kind of a lot of data, right? And before AI was big and all that. And so I just literally swiveled around in my chair, logged into that system, and with 3 clicks of a mouse, I was able to call my friend Brian back and say, hey, Nepal, actually India right next door, is the largest provider in the world of the sheet metal roofing that you were saying that you needed in order to provide shelter for these people. And he's like, oh, wow, thank you, because you know, he just dropped in. He's based out of Thailand. He didn't know anything about, you know, sheet metal roofing or the local politics. But I said, wait a second. Nepal ranked 7th in the world for that product. So do not flood the market with 300,000 sheets of Indian sheet metal roofing, because you're going to create another disaster, an economic disaster, right? So again, the power of data, the power of analytics, and as I look back on that, and as I think about today and innovation, right, I realize that innovation, you know, sometimes it's just so natural. It just happens because it's just looking at whatever problems that you're faced with, and we're all faced with problems, right? Am I right? Or challenges or opportunities to improve. And then taking whatever resources you have in front of you and whatever experiences that you've, you know, been blessed to have, and here you go. Like, let's slap it together. And now all of a sudden you're solving problems in a new way that had never been solved before. And so in that situation, that was incredibly gratifying because he got off the phone with me, ordered sheet metal roofing. We actually sent a videographer over into Nepal. And on the first day of monsoon season, he's driving back to his hotel. And there was, there was a truck on the side of the road just handing out sheet metal roofing, right, to the locals. And so, he had to stop the cabbie and go out and, you know, being a videographer, do his thing. So anyway, I share all that just to say, even without AI, today the flavor of the day is AI, right? But, you know, innovation is just being able to look around us and seeing, okay, how can I solve this problem in a new way? And what's really great is that we're being given some pretty awesome tools to play with now, you know, which in the form of AI. And Microsoft has done a great job using Copilot to kind of make it accessible for us, but also allow us to do it in a safe manner, right? Because we've been entrusted with all this private data. Okay, let's see what happens here when I advance. Okay. But I think about what would have happened if I said to my friend Brian, like, hey, you know, don't buy sheet metal roofing from India, right? What if he didn't believe me? What if he didn't trust me and had gone ahead and done that? Or what if he just didn't believe anything I said and just like, you know, it could have gone a very different way. They wouldn't have had sheet metal roofing there on the first day of monsoon season, all that sheet metal. So, you know, I start every presentation I have with this 5-letter word, right, which is trust, especially now with AI. In the age of AI, everything goes faster. And so without trust, we're not going to be able to move very fast, or we're not going to be able to go very far with AI. So as I would travel the world in my last role and talk to Fortune 100 companies globally, as well as, you know, public servants globally, um, the number one question that would always come up is, hey, is AI going to take my job? Right? So we as public servants trying to wield this awesome tool called AI right now, we have to build trust from our citizens in our ability to wield it responsibly and be trustworthy with these capabilities and with their data, right, and their privacy, but also just internally. Because, well, let me share this example. If we don't believe that trust is important, we can ask our friends at Waymo, right, the self-driving car company. Now, I'm a mechanical engineer by training. I've dreamed all my life of having autonomous vehicles and just that vision. So it breaks my heart a little bit here because, like, can you imagine coming up with an idea of like, okay, we need an autonomous vehicle. Now, how do I do that? And kind of like as a technologist, as an engineer, as somebody who loves innovation, you go through and you just, check every box and you get everything ready to go. And you get this algorithm so good and so strong and so safe where you feel like, hey, I'm ready to release this into the public and I can trust that it's not gonna hurt anybody, right? Only to have something like this happen. And this happened in San Francisco back in 2024. I'm sad to say that some people may have looked at that and been like, oh, that's LA last week, which apparently Waymo now is, another Waymo got set on fire, or a couple Waymos got set on fire in LA over the weekend. But this is people taking out their frustration and anxiety on the technology, right? Because we have to recognize AI isn't just another technology. It's just not another tool. It is a what we call a socio-technical thing. And if you don't believe me, just, whenever, anytime I'm outside of work and people say, hey, what do you do? I say, oh, I'm in the artificial intelligence business. And then I just shut my mouth. And I count to 3. And within 3 seconds, I'll know exactly how the rest of the conversation will go, right? Because if their face changes, their countenance changes, and their eyes get big, it's like, okay, let's talk about it this way. But if the smile lights up on their face, okay, let's talk about it this way, right? Like, it's just such an emotionally charged thing. And so we have to figure out, okay, how do we navigate? Because what this shows us is that even the best algorithm and the best technology we can put out there is nothing without the trust. And so I won't go much into this, but the world's largest PR firm does a trust survey every single year. They've done it for 20 some odd years, right? Right now, you want to be in the upper right-hand corner and being seen as competent and ethical. And this is just a survey. It's not a technology survey. It's just a trust survey that they've done every year, and it's international. Today, in the last few years, businesses have been seen as competent and ethical, and trust in government is at an all-time low. So what do we have? We have trust in government at an all-time low. We have really high anxiety and lack of trust around AI. And now we're saying, hey, we are the government. We're here to help with AI, right? So how do we do this? And not just, again, to the people outside, but the people internally as well. And what I would say to those who are worried about AI taking their jobs, and I'm just talking right now to family, right, to us and our colleagues in the state of North Carolina. It's public knowledge. We have a 20% deficit between the workers that we have and the workers that we need. We've also got an aging workforce where people are getting ready to retire. They've worked a good long career, and they're ready to enjoy the fruits of their labors in retirement, right? And all that amazing knowledge. I was having a conversation with some leaders at one of our agencies recently, and we were just kind of exploring, and my hat's off to them. We're just having a chat about, okay, well, where can AI be helpful? And some of their people were saying, oh, hey, maybe we can use AI to automate this process. And here's how the conversation went. The leader's like, oh, you know what? I've got a team of 4 or 5 people who've been doing that forever. I don't know that AI can add any value there. Fair? Okay. But my next question was, are those people planning to retire anytime soon? Can we use AI to just come alongside them and just learn from them and capture that knowledge so that if and when they do retire, we don't take a step back in our collective knowledge or productivity for your group. And that changed the whole conversation to oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yes, please, right? And so a lot of it is just how we approach and how we position and how we think about how we think about AI. And again, going back to the numbers game, like it doesn't make any sense for us to consider as a state replacing people with AI. But instead, and I'll get to these questions later, let's think about what are the tasks that aren't even being done right now because we just don't have the people for it, right? And then the budgets are tightening, and so again, AI can fill that gap, but we've got to be wise and trustworthy with how we do that. Okay, so here are my top 3 goals for North Carolina, at least for today. No, I think in the short to midterm, I think they're good goals. And so I wanted just to share with this audience, because I think that I'm told, right, we have about 500 people on site, another 2,000 joining online. Like the 2,500 of us, I think that's a force. If we all start moving in the same direction, start using the same language when we talk AI all across the state, that's going to help us to be able to move quicker and move stronger. So the first goal is just to make sure we unify our how we approach AI, how we talk about AI. It's kind of like Scott said earlier, it's AI is kind of like internet. Internet, it's like, no, like it doesn't make sense, right? We've got to get a little more specific about AI and how we're approaching with AI. And it's always fun to build stuff. My kids accuse me of being ADD and ADHD like them because like, man, Dad, there's all these projects around the house. Like, when are you gonna finish some of them, right? Like, it's always fun to start stuff and build stuff, but we've got to come around, finish it, and make sure that it's a great experience from start to finish, right, for everybody around us. Second is to have the most AI literate state workforce in the nation, right? And so think about that. So AI, with education, with literacy, the more we learn, I think the less fear there will be in general. So another conversation I've had recently where someone was saying, wow, the DIT chatbot, it told Director Tanzosh that he wasn't the director, according to the chatbot. It's like, yeah, and it was coming from a place of like not understanding the technology and like, oh man, this thing just says whatever it wants to say. And so it was a great moment for me to say, hey, I'm so glad you caught that, right? Remember, AI is a mirror, right? It'll show us exactly where we have fallen down. So one thing I'm trying to get people to look at AI differently. One way is we're quick to say, oh, AI is wrong. I can't use it. It's not ready for public consumption or prime time, so let's throw it out. But AI is a mirror, right? And it's programmed by imperfect people with biases. And so therefore, it's going to show our imperfections pretty quickly. But that's okay. So in that situation, I said, I'm so glad you caught that, but that's a simple fix. We're going to find, that means that we have an out-of-date document on that public website somewhere. Shocker, right? And AI found it for us. So let's find that document, let's remove it, let's retrain, and ta-da, let's ask it again. And so just being able to kind of walk through that. But AI literacy, I think, is important. And by the way, I am literate in Spanish, with my high school Spanish. I am not fluent, right? My dream is for all of us to be the most AI fluent workforce. But again, not that you have to all know how to code a chatbot, although actually I want everybody in this room who's here today learn how to code a chatbot. But we don't need all 60,000 state employees to know how to code chatbots. It's just like electricity, right? Every day we wake up, we flip a switch. But I'm not an electrician, but we get to wield it. We get to use electricity to our benefit and to do it safely and not worry about shocking ourselves. And the last goal that I have for us in the short to midterm is, and I'm kind of excited to share this with this group, but today's kind of my soft launch of our AI accelerator, which is an AI innovation lab that DIT is going to make available to all of our colleagues and all the state agencies. And so I'll tell you a little more about that. I'm super excited about it. Okay, so real quick, and just again, just to share a little bit of what I'm doing so you guys can come along, so I can come alongside you, and you can invite me to come, if you invite me to come alongside you and my team, we are happy to help you. Like, you don't have to do this alone, right? But first is just figuring out how to define artificial intelligence. Again, it's AI, I love that analogy, Scott, it's just like the internet, right? So back, we had several bills that went through the Senate that had artificial intelligence in it in this last round. And each one of them had a different definition of artificial intelligence. So it's like, man, we've got to get on the same page and have a common definition quickly, right? So even though this is a beautiful academic setting, I won't go into necessarily all of, the academics of AI. And I'm going to breeze through some of these slides, okay? So so forgive me, but please, I'm happy to sit down at any time and come in and visit you guys and talk more. But we've had AI for decades, right? It started off with like good old-fashioned math and statistics, and then came into machine learning, neural networks. And I put this slide up because this is like AI bingo, right? Like you hear all these words getting thrown around. I was going to just kind of give a 3 to 5 minute primer on some of this, but I think for the sake of time, I'll have to do it for you guys another day. But we've had AI for years. And as I look out there at all the definitions of AI, what I want you to take away, and there's IAPP and NIST, two American flavors and one European flavor. It is DIT's recommendation that we adopt the European Union AI Act flavor of artificial intelligence. And I know what some of you are thinking, like, why would we, as red-blooded Americans, choose a European definition of AI? And for me, it's a very practical one, because this gives us the broadest definition of AI for us to work with. By the way, it's been banged on since 2021. So the European Union they took the lead on data privacy. They've taken the lead on AI legislation, AI definition. And so there's so many articles, so much information out there about the EU AI Act that now when I go to ChatGPT or any large language model and say, hey, how would you rate the risk of my project, my AI project based on the EU AI Act? It'll give you a pretty accurate answer, right? And by the way, it also comes with already a list of high risk and prohibited use cases. So again, DIT procurement, when I talked to them about and was socializing with them, they're like, oh, this is so handy, right? Instead of us, AI right now is the Wild West. I don't want anybody in this room to feel like, hey, we're so behind. I know it's easy to feel that way as public servants and technology because it's been that way in the past. But AI is the new level set. Like it's a leapfrog opportunity for us as public servants, actually, right? Because everybody's kind of in that same spot. I had a conversation with somebody in this room a couple weeks ago, and I was like, and we were talking about some AI tool, and I was like, oh, it didn't do that when I tried it last year. And they're like, oh, they fixed it. They did that for me last week. I'm like, okay, great. So now you're a lot more relevant than me, right? So think about it that way. AI is shifting and changing so fast. Wherever and whenever you decide to step into it, you're right there at the leading edge. Okay, so please don't ever feel like you are behind. So again, it comes with high risk, prohibited use cases, so that we can ask. We can do a deeper dive on AI later. But I just want to say today, there are lots of, this slide just shows you there are lots of different flavors of AI. But today we're talking about Copilot, which falls kind of in that generative AI. And generative AI is what a lot of people think about when we say AI, right? And I fall into that too. When I'm trying to talk about policies or different ideas, I'm only thinking about chatbots and large language models. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Got to step back and realize there's the computer vision, being able to look at images and have AI discern things. There's good old-fashioned text analytics. And then there's the machine learning, the quantitative stuff we've been doing for decades, right? The fraud models we run at the state, the forecasting that we do at, so those are the adults in the room. What we have to recognize about generative AI is, I like to say, if I were gonna make a TikTok video, I have 5 kids, so I'm always talking social media with them. If I were gonna make a TikTok video, like it was about AI, a little geeky, forgive me, but it's like, okay, I would say, you know what, machine learning and text analytics had a baby, and that is generative AI, right? So smart kid, because dad's a math whiz, mom's an English major, and by the way, uncle has a photographic memory. Super smart kid, just like my teenagers, that they're super smart. They have more energy than I'm gonna have from here until the end of my days, right? But I'm not ready for them to represent me full just yet, right? They're not experienced enough yet. They still make mistakes, which is why I love when our Microsoft friends say, you know what, it's co-pilot, not autopilot, right? We're not there yet. So let's treat it as such. Anyway, but I was gonna share a little bit about large language models. So in the generative AI world, sorry, you have large language models, and then you have the lesser known little brother, synthetic data. But man, synthetic data, can I tell you, is every bit as good and every bit as valuable for us. And when you put them together, it's like peanut butter and chocolate, okay? But these are the things that we get to be at the forefront of and start playing with. So where to start? As we innovate, as we go across, you know, the state, go back to our agencies, I think a really comfortable place to start for all of us would just be, you know what actions involve a lot of repetition? Right? Let's automate that with some AI, with Copilot. You know, what tasks are the undesirable ones, or the ones that just aren't even getting done? I know I can look around me in the short time I've been here at the state and been like, okay, yeah, we haven't hired a person for that yet, or we don't have budget for that role. Okay, but let's take a step back and think, are there certain portions of that role, that task, where automation could be helpful? Where I can create a chatbot to say, I know what questions that person's going to ask, or that role is going to ask. Let's at least start collecting some of that data and using AI to do 30% of it. 30%, last I checked, is better than 0, right? And then there's also I wish, you know, even though I'm in AI full-time, I have to retrain my brain. And doing AI right and responsibly requires all of us to develop some new muscles that we've not used before or had before and start flexing them. So I have to always remind myself that anytime I start with, man, I wish there was an expert that could advise me on fill in the blank, I'm learning like, oh, let me go ask a large language model, right? Let me go ask Copilot. Let me go ask ChatGPT or Gemini. Funny story, appropriate since we're at a community college. So I sat around a few weeks ago with my daughter, who, you know, she was graduating high school with and she had taken some courses at our community college over in Chatham County. But she wants to go to UNC Chapel Hill nursing program. So we spent like 2.5 hours trying to figure out, okay, the courses that you've taken in the last 1.5 years, how does that map to the nursing program at UNC? But wait, I have to go through this website first. Like, I don't know, anybody ever gone through that? Like, right? Like, it's painful. It is painful. And I did that for about 2 hours, and at the end of it, I'm like, oh, I wish there was just an expert, somebody who worked at the UNC. I was like, then it hit me. I'm like, you're an AI guy. So I pull up ChatGPT, and here's what I said. And I'm sure everybody in this room knows it. For anybody listening online or as you talk to other people, I always remind people, tell generative AI what kind of expert you need it to be first, before you ask the question, right? Because you'll oftentimes get a better answer that way. When you know, again, treat it like an intern or like your teenager. It's like, hey, this is what I need you to do. Right? This is who I need you to be right now. Think, you know, and so I said, you are a admissions counselor for UNC Chapel Hill School of Nursing. I don't know if they have those, but that's what I told. I was the kind of expert that I needed. And I said, if my daughter takes Bio 169 at Chatham County Community College, will that satisfy any of the credits, right? And it gave the right answer, and it gave it really fast. But see, I wouldn't have known if it was the right answer or not if I hadn't gone through the 2 hours. And that's the other important tip that we need to make sure everybody knows. Let's not use AI. Let's first start using AI on questions we already know the answers to. And that way we know what we can trust. How often is this teenager right for this application? You know, depending on their upbringing and their training, sometimes they're 90% right, sometimes they're 40% right. Let's figure that out on questions that we already know the answers to, right? So, and I think like chatbots, digital assistants, that is a great place for us to start. Okay, sorry, bring it in. I was gonna, who doesn't love pictures of whales and stuff? I was gonna tell you a story about synthetic data, but you have to invite me in later for that. Here's the one thing, the most important thing I want to share with you guys today, right? Let's take people on a ride. We're like on AI is an experience, right? And I didn't mean to come up with this acronym, but it just kind of fell out that way. Anytime we talk about AI at the state, let's start with these 4 things, okay? So I want you guys to be able to come in and say, you know what, boss, I have this idea for a project, the use of Copilot, you know, or an AI project, right? And so here's what I want you to say about it. This is a medium risk project, right, with agency-wide impact, using low data sensitivity, right? At least start with those 3 things. Because right away we orient people very quickly. Am I talking about using like biometric, you know, data to allow people in and out of like Medicare programs? Or am I talking about a chatbot that uses public data that will help a citizen just find things so much faster and easier and more consistently, right? 2 very different risk profiles. So what is the risk? What is the impact in terms of reach? What is the data sensitivity? And then, you know, this is a really important one. Let's not forget the E. Like, for whom does this fail? If you only get one thing that you use from now until the end of your days from me, learn to ask that question. As an engineer, I was trained, you give me a problem, I will give you 5 different possible solutions. You pick the best one, and we'll go create it. But nobody ever taught me to ask, for whom does this fail? And if you don't ask it now, you're going to find out super fast with AI, because that's just what AI does, right? Like once you flip that switch on, it's going to go out, hit everybody all at once, and you'll know exactly for whom it fails. Better to ask that question up front. Okay, so, and by the way, this is just an eye chart to say, this is the methodology I use to kind of walk organizations through AI maturity and how to govern AI. So just to let you know, there's a method to the madness. And then lastly, this AI accelerator. I've been working on it since I've gotten here, and I'm so excited that, you know, I think legal just kind of gave the verbal on the contracts we want to use for it yesterday. So this is a place, you know, AI moves fast, it changes fast, and we as public servants need to be able to respond quickly. So this is a place where any state agency, and I'm hoping to, once we get started, open it up to local and county as well, be able to come and say, hey, I have this business problem, right? I have some questions and I have some data. Can AI help me with this problem? And so it's a place where, you know, all of our tech vendors and partners, and then even the universities as well, can come and say, you know, yeah, I've got a solution to that. And then we're gonna pull a team together and we run a 60-day sprint. Within 60 days, you're gonna get answers to your questions and on whether or not AI can help you, and a working prototype, all right? And so, and by the way, it doesn't violate any of our procurement laws. So I got procurement's blessing just on Friday. So this is that place where we get to iterate fast and safe, you know, and in the private sector, when you innovate, right, you have to go through like 100, maybe 200 ideas before you find that $1 billion idea, right? And so it's no different for us. So we just needed a place where we can innovate quickly. I'd invite you guys and anybody else, you know, if you have that idea and you want a safe place, and not just from a technology perspective, but this is where we're going to get really good at storytelling. The governor's office is really excited about our ability just to generate new AI stories coming out of the state every 60 days or so. And so anyway, let me just kind of wrap it up by saying, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being more on the leading edge of innovation, which right now is AI, but you know, AI won't be the last disruptor, it won't be the last innovative thing, right? But it's kind of this mindset and the spirit of, okay, how do we take this thing? You know, for me, I love technology, and now I get to do it to help the 11 million citizens of the state I call home and all my favorite people, right? Like, there's no way I'm not doing this job, you know, and you guys are gonna pay me for this? Great, thank you very much, right? So, but thank you guys for being leaders, and if there are any questions, like, our job is to help the people around us feel comfortable with AI, right? And to do it in a way that's gonna protect and benefit them. So thank you very much for your attention this morning.